So welcome tonight and this evening to everybody over here. Steve, what's up?
Hi.
Hello, Angela, Lana, hello, everybody. Today, officially, we were going to start the third section of the Tomer Devorah, which we spoke about the last 2 weeks. The Tomer Devorah is a Kabbalistic work written over here in Tzfat in the 16th century. And what it is a very user-friendly manual to becoming more godlike as opposed to egocentric-like. And we went through 8 of those specifications, really, which we spoke about is the concept of the 13 attributes of mercy. And each one of them is actually more and more takes us to a more of a selfless place. So essentially, I think I'm going to leave it over there. We did the first 8, and there's another 5 remaining. And for those that are serious that are really would like to go and look at the remaining 5, I say, go for it. If you're able to start even with the first one, that's already a step forward in the right direction. So that's all we could do is just take a step in the positive direction. But what I thought we're going to speak about tonight is, rather than that book of the Tomer Devorah, we're going to speak about Rosh Hashanah, the new year, which is really rapidly coming upon us in about 10 days from now, around, is going to be the new year. So let me just say that the new year in Judaism and in deeper, more esoteric thought, the new year is very different than the new year which is in the secular, which traditionally the new year in the secular world is, like most of us know or have heard about at least, is really about just a lot of alcohol and a lot of making all types of resolutions that are good for the first evening, for the first couple of hours, and the next day, who knows where they went to. And that's pretty much like the new year. I mean, yeah. The new year, Rosh Hashanah specifically, is quite different than that. And we're going to explore what is Rosh Hashanah? What is the basis of Rosh Hashanah? What makes it like the new year, and calling it the new year based on the name of it, and exploring the deeper, more of the Kabbalistic interpretation of Rosh Hashanah. Okay, so first question, and this is when we want to understand something in any language, we want to take the Hebrew word and we want to analyze it, or take any language and try to analyze it as much as we can. So in the more of the Latin languages, we could get down to the more of the Latin word and kind of like figure it out from there, like philosophy, philo, right, is wisdom, right? And except so we could look at a word based on its root word. So in Hebrew, it's actually deeper, because the Hebrew language is not only one of the oldest language, but it's also the divine language that the world was created with, according to Kabbalistic thought, based on the Hebrew alphabet. So the alphabet are the modes of how the world was created, and that was like the building blocks of creation. So hard. So now, when we want to take any word, as I mentioned, you want to look at the Hebrew words of it. When you want to understand a holiday, and an important holiday, which is called the New Year, even more so, we want to analyze the words. So let's look at the word of the Hebrew New Year. And what's the Hebrew New Year called? It's called Rosh Hashanah, literally meaning the head of the year. Okay? And we're going to leave perhaps some of the deeper numerologies, etc. But we're going to just focus on a very literally, based understanding. What does Rosh Hashanah, the head of the year, mean? So It should say actually the not the head of the year, but the beginning of the year. If that's the first day of the year, so it should be called the beginning of the year, not the head of the year. Head is like on a human or an animal, right, or a fish, but not the head of a year. A year, like, what does that mean? The head of a year. So it's explained in Kabbalistic thought that the head of the year refers to that day of Rosh Hashanah, or specifically 2 days. We happen to have 2 days coinciding together, and they actually form a one day kind of like experience. That those 48 hours are kind of like the brain of the entire year. So we're talking about like a microcosm of the entire year. It's almost like the concentrate, right? And from that concentrate syrup, like that apple juice stuff that you pour in, and then you pour in the water afterwards, and it all like becomes like you could make 1,000 cups. It all starts from that like syrup that you pour in at the beginning. And those 48 hours of Rosh Hashanah correspond to the concentrate of the entire year. The entire energy, everything that's going to happen during the year comes as a result of those, or is infused within those 48 hours. So it's kind of like the brain, just like the brain. When we look at a brain, right? A brain is so sensitive. Every part of the brain is like super duper important in the max, right? And so any part of the brain could actually infuse or have a connection to corresponding parts of the body, because the brain is really the body. So too, the head of the year, like the Jewish New Year, is not a traditionally just like taking the champagne and just like celebration and doing one of those like fire. It's not just way deeper than that. It's just something completely different. It's just something completely different. It's something which, if we realize, for example, if this is our last, I don't want to sound too intense, but this is our last like month, year. Well, how precious would that be? How much would we want to hold on to every second, and to make each second actually like really eternal? Yeah. And that is exactly the point of Rosh Hashanah. Rosh Hashanah is those 48 hours are the hours that we are receiving and connecting to the eternality really of the entire, and it's so like sensitive, and it's so vulnerable, that we make of it what we make of it during those 48 hours. And the truth is, the entire year is a microcosm. It's like a point of those 48 hours. Like there's flashes and there's like synapses, so to speak, that send out information and send out life force to every part of the human body, or to the 364 days of the year are now affected, or 63 days actually, by the awesomeness of Rosh Hashanah. So now I'd like to share something with you that is even deeper than this, and I think it's very important to know, to understand, and I think it will make us really better people by understanding it. Okay.
Amen.
So l'chaim to everybody. Cheers. And a happy New Year, and a happy amazing, amazing, productive, fruitful year, an incredible year for all goodness and sweetness and kindness, and really eternity in every part of the year. So the concept is like this. When we say that Rosh Hashanah is called the head of the year, and it includes within it the 363 days of the year, that's one level of Rosh, of head of the year, right? That the year itself is all included in its general form, right? In its like center, in its like source. It's like the vortex of where it stems from. So that's each and every day. On a deeper level, that's the year. Now, on a Kabbalistic level, this world is comprised of 7,000 years, or 6,000 years, right? And this, by the way, does coincide with science. Not to get into that right now, modern science, but the concept of the 1,000 years versus what scientists say regarding the creation of the world, that's millions of years, is not a contradiction. But each year is a part of a general cycle of 1,000. And the reason why the world is comprised of 7,000 years is because that's the perfection of the world. Why is it the perfection of the world? Because 7 corresponds to the 7 emotional levels, which are called the Sfirot. The Sfirot have to do with the aspect of revelation, of knowledge within emotion, right? And that's kind of like bringing it down within 7 spheres, which is kindness, discipline, harmony, fortitude, humility, bonding, and then kingship. So that's why, according to Kabbalah, the 7 days of the week corresponding to the 7 sefirot. Each day corresponding to an emotional aspect, and that and the 3 intellectual parts of us correspond the entirety of what we call man, Adam. That's what makes up the 110, right? Which is very focal, which is very right. So anyway, so each year is part of a cycle, So there's the cycle of thousands, and the first 1,000 was the 1,000 of kindness, and the other cycle was a cycle of discipline, and the other cycle is a cycle of harmony, and then there's a cycle of humility, and a cycle of fortitude, and humility, and then bonding, and then kingship. And kingship is the last one. Right now, where we are in our time is we're in the time of Yesod, bonding, and we're basically corresponds to a Friday, which is right before the Sabbath, right before the redemption. And that's why before Sabbath there's usually all types of crazy things, and everybody is moving around, and everybody's getting ready, and everybody's running around, and that's why the world seems like it's in complete chaos, because any second is going to be Shabbos, any second is going to be the day that we're waiting for. So that's why it seems like it's crazy. So we're in the 6th millennium, right, which is really the 6th, going into the 6,000 millennium, and we're headed into, after that, the 7th millennium, which is the year of basically of utopia, really, the Jewish utopia and the Jewish connectedness and oneness, not the universal, right, where all people are united and at one and at peace with each other. So each 1,000 years has within it the specific year. And now when we think about our year within 1,000 years, there's a lot of events going on in 1,000 years. In 1,000 years, a lot of things go on. A lot of people, were alive, had all died. In between that, they had all types of events. There's life cycles, there's good times, etc. There's all types. There's so many details upon details upon details. And all of those details are all within the 1,000 years, which is basically like kind of like that center of the 1,000 years. And then all of time, okay, it's explained that all of time is also seen or scanned all at once. So not just 1,000 years, but all of humanity. And this is like an unbelievable thought, because if we think about how many people are out there in the world, just right now, how many thoughts are going on? How many events are happening? How many babies are born? How many people are dying? How many people are getting married? It's unfathomable. We can't, the closest we're getting to is we have technology, and we have all types of apps and things like that I believe really push us and connect us to beyond ourselves. And it's all a part of reaching the 7th millennium of being interconnected. But we could do that on a very minor level. Even the guy or the girl with the most Facebook friends, I don't know how many friends you could really have, but let's say you have thousands of friends. How much could you really stay in touch? So let's say you have all those friends. You don't know their thoughts, really. They could post them and then you could understand them, but you don't know all of the people's thoughts. But the entirety of time, not just of the specific year, not just the 1,000 years, but the entirety of time is all known by God all at once. And that's a level of kingship. And that level of kingship is basically connecting our new year with not just a new year within our personal existence, but it's a new year within the collectiveness of many other new years, which actually bring them all back and unite them all back in their source. So our new year is really a part of a new year which is really renewing, and renewing from the source point. So to understand this, we actually have to understand, like, what does it mean that God actually wants to be a king, and what does it mean to be a king over the world, and what does that mean to be crowned? Because the entirety of Rosh Hashanah actually revolves around crowning the king. And what does that mean? So when you take a king, so the analogy of a king is actually very specific. When you take a king, you can have a king that is either born a king, and that makes them a king no matter what. Even if they are like decrowned, or they get like rebels coming in or whatever, they're still a king. So that's one type of a king. And you have another type of king that actually usurps the kingdom, and he takes the kingdom on, he takes the job. So what's the difference between these two types of kings? So the first type of a king is called a king in his essence. He is a king, he is royalty, he's blue blood, and he will always stay that way, right? I'm not talking about just the blue blood of the British people that, right? But there's that concept they wanted to create, that we're different. We have the blue blood, and we're like really aristocrats and etc. In our democratic kind of like world, it's hard to associate with that. But really, it helps us understand this whole analogy of king when it comes to God with us. And in fact, there's a special blessing that you say when you see a king, even a non-Jewish king. There's a special blessing which is said, because when you see a king, you're actually reminded of true kingship. And who's the source of true kingship? That's God. So he kind of like embodies this power of kingship. And it's different than presidents and prime ministers, which are way different than real kings, because, you know, our democratic and our leaders nowadays are are pretty much used to drinking beer with other people, and playing basketball and bowling. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that at all, but it's different than the concept of like the classical king that is actually like really like aloof from everybody else. So all of that really helps us understand what is the real king that we're talking about. So we have those two types of kings. But nevertheless, when you take a king that is a king in his essence, you actually, for him to be a real king and to really rule over the people willingly, he has to be drawn out of himself. Otherwise, you'll think, like, why get myself involved in all this? Like, I just, like, you know, live in some castle, have many servants and maids, and drink fancy wine and have a lot of cheese, and go, you know, traveling with my hounds and everything. So, well, why do I need anything else? And the truth is, many kings probably did that. But to be a really good king, you actually have to be drawn out of yourself to actually want to be a king and a king over your people. And so we're taught that we draw down God to want to become king again this year, because at the end of the year, okay, the life force of that year goes back to its source. That's what is taught in Kabbalistic texts, that each year is a unit, and the life force of that year goes back at the end of the year to its source. So God recreates the world every single year. So basically, God could say, like, it's been nice having you around, but like I'm not sure if I want to, I'm not sure if I want to do this again. So we have to elicit from God a desire to rule again, and to want to like overlook, the entirety and the specifics of every single second, every single moment, and every single one of us. So how do we do that? We actually blow the shofar, right? So we blow the shofar. What's the concept of the blowing of the shofar? The blowing of the shofar is the sound which comes from the essence of a person. It's not particularly a beautiful instrument. It's a very like straight to the point instrument. It's not too melodic, but that's kind of the point of the shofar. The point of the shofar is the calling from the essence of the heart, from the innermost part of the person. And the calling from the innermost part of the person elicits the will or the desire by the king up above to want to rule. Because if you're not begging, you're not saying, let's do this again, give me another try, go out with me again, pretty please, I'm on my knees. You don't say it again one more time. So you say, I don't know, I'm not sure. I'm not sure I want to do this. You haven't been too good. You haven't, you've failed. You've done this. You cheated. You did this to me. You did that to me. Right? So unless we're really actually begging for that reuniting, the king, right, may not want to rule, may not want to do this again. May choose a different, something else. So that's why we blow the shofar. The blowing of the shofar is the calling from the essence of the heart. And this calling of the essence of the heart draws down the will of God to want to recreate the world. And that's really our job on Rosh Hashanah. And that's actually why it's called the day of also of judgment. I mean, it's a very intense, but it's and it's not like but it's basically each and every day is decided, like we mentioned earlier, from those 48 hours. It's kind of like what you decide to do with that potential is what will happen. So it doesn't mean like it's judgment, but you're actually almost like bringing, in a certain sense, judgment, or the way you want your year to look like from Rosh Hashanah. That's really a day of judgment. But what does that mean, really, judgment? So a king looks at each and one of the citizens, so to speak, or each one of the residents of his kingdom, and how much they're really helping his kingdom, how much they're helping the cause, right? The deeper cause over here. And that's the judgment of Rosh Hashanah. How much of the year, so to speak, are we kind of like acknowledging and trying to make the day and the specific infused with the source of that day, which is like the vitality of the king, really. And when we really do that, we're actually living in a conscious place, because we're really saying that every single day is a day that has potential, has opportunity. It's a day that's directed by a higher cause. And if it's directed by a higher cause, that means you're a part of the kingdom. So now if you're part of the kingdom, hey, if this is going to help you do the job better, you'll get that. It's like jobs. They'll, if you need this for your job, we'll get that for you. If you need that for your job, not a problem. If it's going to help you perform better, money's not a right. Is not a problem. We'll do anything. So that's the judgment of Rosh Hashanah. How much of our lives are we connected? Are we specifically connected to the greater picture, to the greater cause of existence, basically of our existence and the existence of the greater existence? Because we're a part of that. So our small existence and our small contribution and our own positive, so we can't get down on ourselves by thinking, well, what am I? And some people do that, and they're thinking like, what I do is anyways insignificant and inconsequential to really the bigger picture of everything. That's incorrect, and that's false humility, because each one of our actions has an effect, has a positive effect, and the positive outweighs the other side, right? That's what we're taught, that the positive outweighs the negative. So we can't think that, okay, well, it's not gonna, what am I really doing? We have the potential to with every part of. You could turn that off, by the way.
Yeah,
step on. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I'm feeling the same way.
It's just this one.
Mm-hmm. Yes, beautiful. Yes, get the fresh air. Oh, that is amazing.
Right. Yeah, that's a little bitter.
And so that is the specific point that we are aiming for at this time, more than the rest of the year, as a preparation for Rosh Hashanah. And Rosh Hashanah is a time of renewal right? It's not, a renewal for this. It's a renewal where it's like the recreation, so to speak, of the Big Bang of all of creation, of this, right, of physical creation, spiritual creation. Although the physical world is still there, but it's like sort of like almost held there, according to the Arizal over here in Tzfat, that he teaches, that the world is kind of like almost like in a balance until Rosh Hashanah day, where the shofar is sounded, and once the shofar is sounded and it's elicited, so then that causes separation. Sorry, a result from up above, of the king wanting to be king. So there's a story by the following analogy. It's not a real story, but it's an analogy. So there's a prince that that was like most princes, were spoiled. They didn't know how to really appreciate everything that was given to them, and the father of the prince, the king, said, I want my son to really appreciate and to really grow into this role, and not just to take it for granted. And what he did is he gave him, a whole bag of money, and he sent him across the sea, and to kind of like, live life, and to try to like grow on their own. So he sends him over there, and at first the prince doesn't know what to do, because he's used to his nannies, and he's used to his cooks, and he's used to, like, everybody doing his laundry for him and whatnot. And then before he knows it, he's like spending his money on useless things. And finally he realizes he's actually in a pretty bad place, and he doesn't know how to get out of it. And he starts actually to drink. Somebody gets him into that. And he becomes a drunkard. And in fact, he squanders all of his money, and because he doesn't have any more money, he actually has to sometimes stoop to stealing and to do all types of ridiculous things to feed his need for connection, which he was never able to really own in a healthy way, in a proper way. So now he's really stooped down pretty low, and he hears that, or it's announced that the king is coming to town. The king, who's really his father, right, is coming to town, and the city is really preparing for this. Seriously, they're putting up banners, and they're putting up all types of decorations and whatnot. And finally the king comes through the city, and this prince over here of ours is like sleeping somewhere, and he's woken up by the commotion, and people are probably trampling on him, and he gets up and he's like, what's going on? They're like, didn't you hear, you bum, the king is in town. Oh, the king's in town. Oh, really nice. That's cool. And he goes over and he takes a look, and he sees like it's actually the king's carriage, like beautiful golden carriage is coming down, and he gets a glimpse of the person in the carriage, and he sees that face, and it's the face of his father, and he kind of like is like sobered up really quickly, and he knows that face, and he darts right through all the people, through the guards, and he darts up, on the horses, and he climbs up, and before anybody could stop him, he looks at the king, his father, in the face, and the king looks at him, and he remembers his face, and he calls out, "Father, Father!" Right? He calls that out, and just as the guards were going to grab him and going to take him down, the king says, "Leave him." And he takes him up. And he takes him back to the palace. He washes him and he brings him right in. And right, what do you call it? Brings him back to his former glory, and brings him back to be the prince. So the Baal Shem Tov taught this analogy, and he says that is the blowing of the shofar. The blowing of the shofar is basically, we are that prince, and the king is our father, and we've stumbled down, and we came from a very high source. We came from a spiritual source, godly soul, and we came down. And during the year, we may have lost our way. May have become very disillusioned, confused, sad, depressed, right? Angry, etc. And we lose our direction, we lose our point, and really our focus, our compass is now just totally in complete disarray. So when we come to Rosh Hashanah, we blow the shofar. And the blowing of the shofar is our calling of Father, of seeing us, and we see him, he sees us, and that's the essential connection, the deepest connection that goes beyond even what the son did. And in fact, if we analyze it, the son actually failed, because the father sent him over there with kind of like a test, with a mission to see if he was if he was going to be able to pass, but he didn't pass. But the opposite happens. The father takes him in, and that shows a deeper connection of father to son, of parent to child. It's not based on what you do, but it's in who you are. And that actually represents a deeper aspect of connection that we have on Rosh Hashanah. So we connect on Rosh Hashanah by eliciting the king to want to be king over us, because we're a part of the kingdom. But even if we're not necessarily a part of the kingdom, and we've swayed away, and we've made the kingdom, like a king doesn't really like homeless people. Rather have no unemployment and no homeless people, right? The streets are clean. Everybody has that good job. That's what a king would rather have, not those people that are not good. But the truth is, that's the sign of a king, of how much compassion he's going to have. And that's what we do on Rosh Hashanah. We go up, we're like, you're our father. And, we may not have done the greatest job, but at the same time, not just we're related, we're the same person. We're the same face, when we're connected essentially and eternally one to the other. And that's a deeper aspect of the blowing of the shofar, eliciting that connection. So that's a deeper aspect of understanding the new year, the Rosh Hashanah, the new year, right? So the new year is not just a year of, within those 48 hours, everything occurs, but it's a day of forging. It's a day of connecting to the general point, to the essential point. And when we're connected to the essential point, so then everything by default is also positive. And we have to work on bringing it into all the details and into all the practicalities and all the, right, within time and within specifics and within order, right? And all of it actually has to come within order in order for it to become really fully manifested and to be fully, right, godly in a sense, because godliness isn't in just the spirituality, but it's in the practicality. It's in the moment, right? It's not just in the abstract. It's actually within the moment, right? And perhaps that's where it's more godly, because God is not, as much as we understand the spiritual and the beyond mind, we will never understand it fully, because it's more and more abstract. But when we understand within the moment, so then we're actually connected to the essence, because the moment is actually the specific, and it's the most at hand and the most practical. And within that practicality, there is that eternality. So then that is actually the essence. That is actually the deepest acknowledgement and understanding of God, right? Because within the moment, we are connected to the above moment, and that's kingship, beyond time. And it even goes back to the essence, to the concept of the source itself, of God in his essence. So the specific is most connected to the essence. So the recreation of the new year and the specifics of the new year is rooted in essence. And all of this is really in the prayers of Rosh Hashanah. The prayers of Rosh Hashanah are really all talking about kingship. And there's a beautiful word, there's many beautiful words, but a sentence over there is as follows. This is the sentence. This is the beginning of your action. Chilas Maasecha is like the beginning of the formation of your action. And it's a memory for the first day. It's a memory to the first day. So it's actually a kind of like contradictory statement. This is the beginning of your action. It's a memory of first day. So if it's the beginning of your action, how could it be a remembrance to the first day? First day refers to the Big Bang, and like basically the concept of the spiritual Big Bang, that everything occurred from there. And this is the beginning of your actions, is telling us that beginning of your action refers to the more of the years, the way they are within time. So how could it be a remembering to the first day? So I don't want to go too much into this. There's actually books that are actually this thick, that actually delve into this subject Kabbalistically on many different vantage points. But I just want to bring out the point that within the Rosh Hashanah, we have the specifics, and within the specifics, understanding the specifics, we are connected to the memory of the first day, which is actually the essence itself of godliness. So when we talk about king, we're not just talking about kingdom and kingship based on like the origin of the first of the entirety of the year, but it's the entirety of creation on all time coming together, and then all time coming together actually connects to the essence, and the essence over there is basically the essence of God. So the essence is connected to time, all seen, all as one, and that all breaks down into more and more specifics. So what I want to say is basically something practically that we could take out of this is that within this specific Rosh Hashanah that we're embarking upon, which is going to be an amazing, awesome year, no doubt. It's going to be definitely the best years of our lives, but the entire world for sure. We are connected to all of time together. And all of time together is rooted in the beyond time. So it gives us like a deeper kind of like meditation. And if we like acknowledgement into the awesomeness of the day, besides just being like Rosh Hashanah, a day that we dip our apples in honey, which have deep, deep significance to it, and just, you know, the other customs and whatnot of Rosh Hashanah. It's the day. It's that there's a very strong spiritual energy, because it's the day that all of time is being recreated on all these levels that we spoke about. So food for thought, and you know, I'll let everybody kind of like do their own further research and further deepening of thought and consideration, you know, if they wish, and that's really Rosh Hashanah in a very like direct point, in like about 40 minutes, 45 minutes, understanding kind of like the essence in a very short amount of time. So so I want to bless everybody with an amazing Rosh Hashanah, an amazing new year, for the entirety of Israel and the entirety of the world, and you should be peace and goodness and Mashiach, and you know, the ultimate happiness and health and just goodness for everybody in the world, and you know, just joy, enjoy beyond joy, and we could access that. Why is that? Because we are connected to infinity, and the more we realize that, the more we spread inner Torah to ourselves as well as to others, is the day that we bring the day of basically of, you know, complete revelation of the goodness, you know, of the beyond time and beyond, you know, the specifics of even good and bad, that everything should be transformed for goodness, yeah, it should be soon. It should be this year. It should be in a practical way. And many blessings to Live Kabbalah, and many blessings to everything, to everybody's specific life, and all of their days, and days of the world, days of our lives, right? Days of our lives in the Machzor edition, not the other editions. So I want to wish everybody a Shana Tova, and
God bless for a sweet new year. Bakol for everything.
Amen, amen. Bakol is 50, and so 50 is also beyond world, and has to do with the Jubilee, because world is 7, and then the Jubilee is the concept of 50, which is associated with number 8, which is beyond world, and that's beyond like the understanding. But I just want to say that this Rosh Hashanah is actually, in Jewish thought, is called the year of Hakel. It's the year of interconnectiveness. After Shemitah year, says there's the concept of all the people coming to the temple and listening to the Torah being read. So the entirety of the Jewish people in the land of Israel used to come up to Jerusalem and hear the Torah being read by the king. And they were all interconnected on this year, which is actually called the 8th year. So we're actually going into that year right now, the 8th year. And it's definitely amazing things are happening. Amazing things are going to be revealed in this world, and we want to be a part of it. We want to be a part of the kingdom, and we want to be connected, and we want to be, in sync and in line, and do everything that we can, to further that, and to get our family on board, and to get our, everybody that we know on board, and to do everything that we can. And it should all be in a joyous way, in a happy way, in a fruitful way, in a great way. So Shabbat Shalom and Hashana Tova.